Time for the market report. Prices still falling.
That they are. And how does Mississippi stack up so far this year? We'll get into both. But first, the numbers. What were last week's biggest gains and losses? And then an update on the Mississippi ag situation so far from MSU Extension and a Mississippi farmer. So, markets closed last week, still trending down. Livestock and lumber, the only exception. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest gain, lumber, up 16 bucks, a near 3.5% rise from the previous week. Last week's biggest loss, soybean oil, down over 1.5 cents, a near 4% decrease from the previous week. So with those lowering prices, how does that affect farmers here in Mississippi? We're kind of a microcosm of the ag situation nationwide, so we decided to take a closer look at the issue. And from appearances, seems farmers, especially in row crops, are frustrated with less income compounded by challenging weather and, at best, an average crop.
Well, I think as many people know, every year is a challenge with agriculture.
And that's true for Mississippi, especially this year. Although it may not appear that way when you drive along the highway, many crops in the state suffered from early rains causing late planting.
I think we had some challenges planting starting off. Had a lot of rain starting out early in the season. Parts of the state was very late getting planted. We had some preventative planting due to that. Seems like more lately here, now we're facing some drought problems in the state. We've got isolated showers, but it hasn't been widespread across the state. I know some of our county agents across the state have been taking pictures, trying to monitor and help with some of the potential drought issues that we're facing. I think some of the long-term forecasts that we're facing is actually probably predicting more drought.
It's been a roller coaster ride. So from March 1st through June 1st, we had 32 inches of rain, where we got 26 total last year. So we, behind on planting pitiful stands, waterlogged crops, lost a bunch of corn, replanted the beans. We hadn't had a decent rain since June 1st. So now we're burning up. We have no irrigation. So it's been a roller coaster.
It's the nature of agriculture when weather a big factor for success. And it's not just row crops. Cattle industry also still rebounding from several years of drought. With more of that on the way, things look disappointing.
Prices are out the roof because of the shortage, because we've had 3 years of drought scattered around the country where we've faced huge sell-offs, and most of the cattle producers are older and are not replacing those cattle. We're way behind on hay production. We've made a lot of low-quality bales recently, but we couldn't get in the hay fields either with all that rain we had first part of the summer. We've had too much rain early. Of course, now that we finally got through with the first cutting, now we need some rain to make the second cutting. So it's just weather. I lost the majority of my corn to floods and had to replant the beans, so I only have a small acreage of corn and a third of it replanted. So I think it's going to be okay, but it's not going to be a bumper crop by any means. I don't know, everybody's so down right now because of the markets and the preventive planting and the weak stands from all the rain early. There's not a whole lot of positives around the state right now about anything in agriculture other than the cattle business.
Another issue affecting Mississippi, commodity prices, as we've been reporting, on the lower side row crop wise, which means less return this year for those hardworking men and women who grow our food.
Well, that's always a challenge looking at commodity prices. Most every crop that we typically plant in this state, we're not experiencing extremely high prices. You couple that with equipment costs and some of the input costs that we're dealing with. Heard people even today just talk about their irrigation bills just from running diesel pumps and electricity costs and all that. So that's always a challenge, particularly when we have low commodity prices. But overall, I think the crops look pretty good, particularly where they're irrigated. As I've drove around the state in recent weeks, I think we got a pretty clean crop. But again, we got some areas, particularly where we don't have irrigation, that's struggling right now. And we got some time, but hopefully the weather will cooperate. We'll have a good fall and a good harvest, but it's a little early to tell right now.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Despite the cattle business doing pretty well, row crops the commodities to watch as growing season continues.